Now, let's explore that a bit more. There's something in your brain called the substantia nigra. Some of you might be familiar with the substantia nigra, some of you might not be. Your substantia nigra does multiple things. Like it's responsible for your intelligence, it's responsible for your own internal GPS, for you to know left and right, up and down, north and south. But also it's responsible for memory, movement, and releasing dopamine. When people have, and the reason why we even start to study the substantia nigra is basically Latin for black substance. And the reason why we start to understand and, intrinsically get acquainted with substantia nigra is because we start to look at Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. And it's the death of melanin in the brain, because substantia nigra is just melanin in the brain. It's a neuromelanin, right? You have your neuromelanin, you have your pheomelanin, your eumelanin, right? You have your melanin concentrated hormones. Everything in your body is ruled under melanin. Nothing in your body makes a decision without melanin being involved. So when the melanin in your brain is degenerating through sugar primarily and unhealthy fats, what happens is you start to deteriorate the melanin in your brain. And now, if you look at the family and you see this dementia or Parkinson's or Alzheimer's in the family, you have the gene that's active for it. So all it needs is 20, 30, 40 years of complete neglect for it to activate, right? Because what happens is, in order for activation to make sense, you have, in epigenomics, what I was mentioning earlier about environmental factors, what happens is you have the genetic code for poor diet in you. So when you pass it on to your child and you're a person that's overweight or for over years, you will pass on the genes to your children to be more predisposed to being overweight, right? Because what it's doing is through a methylation process in biology and genetics, a methylation process is when the methyl group is over a genetic code to silence it or activate it. So it's about silencing and activating genetic material based on environment and internal environments, what you're ingesting internally and the environments you put yourself in. Stress can do that. Stress can alter DNA. The air alters your DNA. Anything you take in will alter the DNA in that space. So it's a dopamine release by the substantia nigra that plays a key role in monitoring the reward and pleasure centers of the brain. For instance, when you are doing something satisfying, dopamine ensures that your brain remembers this good experience, making you crave for what is done to get that reward pleasure again. When you want to change habit, you have to provide reward systems for the brain. Otherwise, your mind will not be realigned to actually deal with that newfound practice. This is why discipline is key. Discipline is deferred gratification. The problem is you have your amygdala, and your amygdala is dealing with your fight or flight response. Your amygdala traps all your traumas. You have a bigger amygdala in Black people. We carry a lot of trauma. We have our size of our amygdala is slightly bigger as an organ as opposed to other ethnic groups. Now, our fight or flight system works like this. You said to yourself, and let me know in the chats if anyone had this experience. You said to yourself, okay, healthy eating from the 1st of August. And the minute you start saying healthy eating, that's when your friend wants to take you out to dinner. That's when auntie wants to make that bad boy food you like. That's when chocolate and all these things just end up at your doorstep. And you're just like, oh, I shouldn't have told the universe this because I should keep it to myself. Because the minute I said it, it's like the world functioned itself to trip me up. Now, what happens is, intrinsically, I shouldn't even be touching that, right? But you're going through a fight or flight situation because your amygdala is overwhelmed with emotions. And when you get overwhelmed with emotions, you shut down critical thinking. So your amygdala is overwhelmed with the emotional connection to that food. I want that donut because I've had a crappy day. These people are pissing me off and this is happening. And your emotions are putting you in a vulnerable place. This is why it's hard to say no in that moment, unless you're extremely disciplined, because now your amygdala has shut down. Once your amygdala shuts down, your imagination takes over. So your brain starts justifying why this makes sense. Oh, I've been good this week. That's my favorite one. I've been good this week. I deserve, right? This is why I hear a lot. I deserve a treat, right? And I tell people all the time, when you say deserve, you're talking about, when you look at the definition of deserve, you're talking about being worthy of, right? When we talk about being worthy, it's about the value. Now we're entering the concept of value. If you're worthy of value, why is your selection of something with the least amount of value? There is a disconnect there, right? But that's what that dopamine does. That's why you're addicted. This is the addiction cycle, right? This is what takes place. Now, I want to give you the schematic so you can actually see visually what I'm talking about, right? Now, in food-related behaviors, we have to look at the environmental impact, the societal well-being, including health, and economical impact, right? People tell me all the time, Joe, economically is hard, is it expensive, right? Now, if you want to go to Asda, Sainsbury's and buy all this gluten from, free from this, free from life, and free from everything else, then yes, you might rack up a high bill. If you structure your food in a certain way, when I run my programs, I'm running one this 1st of September, but when I run them, I always tell people by the end, you will only eat once a day and be full. And the first thing Black people look at me as like, you crazy. What do you mean I'm eating one meal a day? That don't even make sense. And I'm like, because the reason why you're constantly hungry is because you overindulge in glucose-based food. Your ghrelin is your hunger hormone. It does not respond to all that sugar you're putting in. This is why you can eat so much sugar. You have proteins in your taste buds to recognize salt. That's why you can't take too much of it. Do you understand? You don't have the same proteins for sugar. You can ingest as much as you want, where your tonsils will go inflamed because your tonsils are a great indicator of how much acidic food you're eating. But for the most part, you don't have the protein to slow you down when it comes to sugar. So your ghrelin does not respond to those starchy carbohydrates, starchy drinks, alcohol, and all these biscuits. Your body does not respond to that. It responds to, your ghrelin responds to your fiber and protein and healthy fat intake, but mainly your fiber and your protein.